The plane had barely touched the runway when the passengers heard the soft sound of wheels rolling behind them, a special wheelchair, pushed gently by a man whose face looked like he carried the weight of an entire world. But it wasn't the father's tired eyes that caught everyone's attention. It was the girl in the chair, motionless, her gaze locked on the window as if the world outside no longer belonged to her. No reaction. No hope. No spark. And yet, a few rows behind them, a single dad who had his own battles looked at her and whispered a promise that would soon change everything. "I'll help her." Most people didn't hear it. But the story of how those words rebuilt a broken soul began long before that quiet whisper. The CEO of Harrington Enterprises, Leonard Harrington, had everything: money, power, reputation. But none of it mattered anymore. Not since the accident. Not since his daughter, 17-year-old Amelia, had gone from a bright athlete who outran boys twice her size to a girl who couldn't move her legs or lift her own hands. She had stopped talking. Stopped smiling. Stopped trying. Doctors called it trauma-induced paralysis, but to Leonard, it felt like watching a light die in slow motion. He tried therapists. He tried specialists. He even flew her to Switzerland, hoping miracles resided in mountains. Nothing worked. She had shut down, refusing even to meet his eyes. The world had become something she watched through glass, never touching it again. And then there was Daniel Reyes, a single father working 2 jobs, raising his 10-year-old son, Mateo, with nothing but love and determination. He wasn't rich. He wasn't powerful. But he carried something Leonard had lost: hope. Mateo was born with a speech delay, and for years the world underestimated him. Daniel had fought for him, encouraged him, celebrated him until one day the little boy who everyone thought would never speak full sentences recited an entire poem on stage. Daniel didn't believe in giving up on anyone, not even a stranger's child. When Daniel boarded the returning domestic flight with Mateo, he noticed the CEO immediately. Everyone knew who Leonard Harrington was. But Daniel also noticed something no one else dared look at: Amelia's emptiness. And when Mateo accidentally dropped his toy car near her wheelchair and bent to pick it up, Amelia did not even blink. Mateo looked at his dad, confused. "Dad, does she not feel anything?" Daniel only said, quietly, "Maybe she feels too much." That was the first moment Amelia's eyes flickered. And that flicker was enough for Daniel to whisper, almost to himself, "I'll help her." From the moment they stepped off the plane, Amelia's silence followed them like a shadow. Her father barely spoke, as if afraid his voice would crack. Daniel couldn't stop thinking about the girl. There was something painfully familiar about her, the way hopelessness wrapped around her like a heavy blanket, the way she avoided everyone's gaze, as if connection itself was dangerous. Fate, or something like it, intervened the next morning. Daniel worked part-time as a rehabilitation assistant at a community center. He wasn't a therapist, but he had learned enough about physical and emotional recovery through Mateo's journey that the center relied on him for extra support. So when he walked into the gym and saw Leonard Harrington talking to the head therapist, frustration lining every word, Daniel froze. Leonard was practically begging for someone who could reach her. Therapists saw a case. Daniel saw a child drowning quietly. Before he could stop himself, he stepped forward. "I met your daughter yesterday," he said softly. "I think I can help." Leonard turned sharply. "Who are you?" "Just a dad who's been through something similar," Daniel replied. "Your daughter, she hasn't given up. She's just afraid to try again." Leonard's jaw tightened. "She won't talk. She won't respond. She refuses therapy." "Then she needs a reason to try," Daniel said. "Let me try something different." Leonard hesitated. For a man who controlled empires, losing control of his daughter's fate was unbearable. But his eyes, tired and desperate, softened. "If you can get her to even look at you," he said slowly, "I'll believe anything." And so it began. Daniel approached Amelia not with instructions, not with pity, but with stories. He told her how his son used to hide under tables during therapy, refusing to say a single word. How people called Mateo slow. How Daniel used to sit beside him, whispering, "I believe in you. Even if the world doesn't." Mateo would eventually peek out and listen. Amelia didn't respond. But she listened. He noticed the tiny movements in her eyes, the way her breathing changed when he mentioned sports. He learned that she loved running, something Leonard had never mentioned. She had medals stored in a drawer she refused to open. So Daniel brought a pair of running shoes to her session, not to make her walk, but to place them gently beside her. "These are not for today," he said. "These are for the day you decide to try." The slightest tremble ran through her fingertips. It was the first sign of life. And Leonard, watching from behind the glass window, felt something he hadn't felt in months, hope cracking through grief. The breakthrough came unexpectedly during a storm. The thunder shook the center's windows, and Amelia flinched. Her breathing sped up. Daniel rushed to her side and knelt. "You're safe," he whispered, the same way he used to tell Mateo when storms scared him. "You're not alone." For the first time, Amelia lifted her hand, barely, shaking, to grip his sleeve. It was the smallest movement. It was everything. Leonard burst into tears outside the room. Progress became slow but miraculous. A week later, Amelia moved her fingers on command. 3 weeks later, she spoke, just one word, "Dad." Leonard nearly collapsed hearing it. By the second month, she lifted her own arm. By the fourth, she pushed her wheelchair on her own. The world watched as the girl who had once given up began fighting again, not because of medicine, not because of money, but because a single dad believed in her when she didn't believe in herself. On the day Amelia took her first supported step, cameras and reporters crowded the facility. But she didn't look at them. She looked at Daniel. "You kept your promise," she whispered. Daniel shook his head. "No. You kept trying. I just reminded you that you could." Leonard hugged them both, tears streaming. "You've given me my daughter back," he said. "I can never repay you." Daniel smiled softly. "Just never let her forget how strong she is." Amelia looked at Daniel with bright, steady eyes, the same eyes that once stared into nothingness. "Will you stay until I can run again?" Daniel nodded. "I'll stay as long as you need." And for the first time in months, she smiled. The world often believes miracles come from wealth, power, or medicine. But sometimes, miracles begin with something far smaller, a whisper from someone who refuses to give up. A whisper that says, "I'll help you." And someone finally believing that they are worth helping.